Let's go back to the phone lines. We'll talk to Michael in Strasbourg. Hi, Michael.
I feel very fortunate that both of my children seem to be loved by God. My big prayer was, please love them both, after God saying, one I hated, one I loved. But one of them called me out. My wife left me. I'm dating someone whose spouse has died. But I'm wondering if I am committing adultery if I married her because my spouse left me.
Well, here's the deal. If you are in a marriage and your spouse leaves you and she closes the door to reconciliation, you're not bound in that circumstance. In fact, that's precisely what the Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. So he's pointing out that if an unbelieving spouse leaves, he says the other party is not bound in that circumstance. However, and this is a big however, if, however, the unbeliever is willing to stay in the relationship, the other party must not get a divorce. So again, if the door to reconciliation is closed because someone leaves and either dies or marries someone else, you're not bound in that circumstance.
Well, I think my son is hoping there would be reconciliation.
Well, that's the greatest good.
I thought it was hopeless.
Well, that's the greatest good. I mean, look, if you think about marriage, marriage is, well, it's parabolic. It's parabolic of Christ and the church. So you think about the reality that Christ forgives us. He pays a debt that we could never pay. He reconciles us to himself. So the parable there is one of reconciliation, and we live out that parable in our relationships and most certainly in our marriage. So the idea of reconciliation is paramount in the life of a Christian. Now, having said that, reconciliation is always a two-way street. It takes someone who is wanting to reconcile and someone who is, on the other hand, willing to reconcile. In other words, you need both sides of the equation. You need someone who is willing to forgive and someone who is wanting to be forgiven. You need someone who is willing to reconcile and someone who is wanting to be reconciled.
That complicates it a bit.
Well, it complicates it unless you want what... See, this is not about technicalities. This is not about, well, how do I get around this particular technicality? How do I figure this angle out? What this is really about is saying, God, I want what is best according to your will. And then God will guide you. He will open doors and close doors, but he will guide you. But if you say, you know what, I want to do it my own way, and I want to find a technical way out, it always leads to heartbreak. So the best way is always God's way. And maybe by way of analogy, it's sort of like the prayer I was talking about earlier that I prayed just before I came into the studio. I was praying about my healing, as many people are. And I pray on the one hand, Lord, please heal me. On the other hand, I pray, Lord, glorify yourself through whatever I go through, but whatever your choice is, may your will be done, because God sees the panoply of our lives. I only see a snapshot, as do you, a snapshot at a time. So we want God's way. And so I think that the complication goes away when you say, you know what, I want what you want, God. I want you to be glorified in my life. And God will maybe close the door that at this point you think should be closed and open the door that you think should be opened. Maybe it'll go in a different direction, but whatever direction God wants it to go is the direction that is best for you. I mean, that's again why God has these regulations, not because he wants to curtail your joy, but because he wants your joy to be full.